People of Reddit, what was the scariest thing that happened on a camping trip? A friend and I made the mistake of driving to the nearest town to watch the Blair Witch Project, only to return to our campsite scared out of our minds. 18-year-old tough guys slept in the truck with all the windows covered. My friend snuck out at night and built the damn sticks from the movie and put them on the windshield and then scared himself because he heard the noise. He woke me up with his scream and we drove 100 miles home, freaked out and left all of our camping gear there. Camping during a severe thunderstorm. We can hear every so often a tree breaking and falling. We just waited in our tents to get crushed. It didn't happen. 0 out of 10 would not recommend. So I was camping with my church youth group one year and we were camping on one of the group's leaders' property that was right in the edge of a forest. Anyways, a group of us decides to mess with one of the older kids, he was 17 back then, by jump scaring him with one of those serial killer hockey masks. It was very juvenile, I know. So one of us goes to see if he's in his tent. They walk up and yell, "Hey, are you in there?" And we hear a response of "Go away" in his voice. So the kid with the mask went up to his tent and tried to shake it, then pop out wearing the mask. But that's when we realize he's not there. We're confused, so we head back to the main group up at the fire where we find the kid who said he'd been at the fire for the past 2 hours. Mind you, there was no way for him to have gotten from his tent and to the fire before us. The scariest part was that night I heard footsteps walking around my tent all night, along with the howls of a group of coyotes out in the woods. I still joke that we were visited by skinwalkers. Solo camping in North Idaho, miles from the nearest trailhead or road, I was sleeping in my tent through a huge thunderstorm. At one point, I heard a loud crash, but it was raining too hard to go out and investigate. In the morning, I found that a very large tree, maybe 2 feet in diameter, had come down not 3 feet from my tent. If that tree had fallen just a bit to one side, it would have come down on top of me and there was no way I could have reached medical help. I would have died on that mountain. That happened to a friend of mine, but the tree actually fell on her tent. She wound up losing one of her legs and needing like 20-something surgeries. The most frightened I have ever been in my life. My partner wakes me up in the dead of the night inside of our tent, whispering, "Don't move, don't make noise." I listen for a minute and hear a loud rustling outside our tent. We lay there for a while, frozen, and the rustling continues. I start to shake from pure adrenaline. Finally, my partner grabs the axe and tells me to run for the car. I consider arguing, but bad time to argue. So finally, we lunge for the door, I frantically unzip it, and I make for the car like an Olympic runner. But then, there's nothing outside. We can't find anything. Not a sight or a sound of an intruder. We're ranging cautiously around our site, looking for anything suspicious. Suddenly, I hear the rustling again. I point my flashlight toward it, and it's a literal mouse. A literal mouse had been stomping around our tent for about half an hour, scaring us shitless. Backpacking in North Carolina, right as a tropical storm hit, set up camp in the dark and decided to wait it out. When we emerged the next day, we realized the grove we hunkered down in was almost entirely made of widowmakers. My friend was in the middle of turning an old bus into a recreational vehicle, and we took it out to a popular but out-of-the-way campsite and set up a tent. Had a fire, drank a bit, shot the shit. We finally crawled into the tent to sleep and only then realized how much the wind picked up. It was early September, not too cold to sleep in a tent usually, but the roaring sound of the wind in the trees coupled with the wind chill was making it really hard to sleep. So after an hour or so, I suggested we sleep in the bus/recreational vehicle. It was fairly comfortable despite only being a plywood floor. The noise of the wind was somewhat less and the chill was much less. The scary part was next morning, when I woke up to see a cabal of coyotes around the remains of our campfire. The tent had collapsed overnight from the wind or the coyotes, and one was lying atop of it. I really needed to pee, but did not want to leave the bus. My grandparents were camping by a river once, and after dark they saw a couple of lights moving off in the distance. It was clear that they were slowly getting closer, and my grandpa realized that they were lanterns, and when they got within 50 yards or so, he shouted out something like, "Who's there?" The lanterns instantly shut off. He and my grandma ran to the car and drove off. When they came back the next morning, their campsite was ransacked and anything of any value had been stolen. Waking up with spiders all over me. Not me, but a friend woke up to a wild horse eating his hair. He opened his eyes to a giant animal face right in his face and freaked. Sleeping outdoors at the edge of a bushland where it meets the beach and a very basic camp, he screamed. The horse startled but would not go away, and then had to be chased away. No one slept comfortably for the rest of the trip. That's it for this episode, everybody. Sleep tight, like, share and subscribe. See you very soon.